after seeing what happened with COVID, the way that they stimulated the economy and printed money endlessly and airdropped people funds to
Couldn't agree with you more. I just recently saw the news of Michael Saylor buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin.
Random Monday,
Speaks to,
10,000 Bitcoin.
speaks volumes. Yeah.
Yeah. I found other creative ways to lose my Bitcoin. So I can, I think that was a guaranteed and inevitable part of the growth of the asset class, and there
Mhm.
was no other way it
Yes.
could have happened. There's literally like Bitcoin could not be where it is today without those
Mhm.
people experiencing those things.
Hello and welcome to the SwapSpace channel. Today we're interviewing Scott Melker. Hope you enjoy the episode. So, let's get the show on the road.
Awesome.
I'd like to start. Yeah, we have a recurring theme on the channel here, and we try to ask uh, about the beginning, about the roots. So, again, let's start at the beginning. How did you first get into crypto, and what was your entry point into this world? Because obviously you had a background. I did some research on it, but for those of you that don't know you, what is it?
So my a long, strange, winding road of a background that obviously brought me to crypto. But I guess on the crypto side, I started trading and being interested in markets literally when I was a young teenager. So right around the time I was 13 or 14, I got a gift of one share of Disney stock and I bought a share of Caterpillar because I thought it was cool, which I'm still holding. They were physical certificates, at this point, but was interested because of learning from my parents and their friends about markets. So obviously I didn't know very much, but I knew that it was cool that I could buy a share of Mickey Mouse and hold on to that for the rest of my life and own a piece of Disney company. That just fascinated me. I went to the University of Pennsylvania in the late 90s, and obviously that was really during the major investment banking boom. So getting a job on Wall Street coming out of Penn in 1999 was about as easy as getting Halloween candy on Halloween. So I did not end up taking a job on Wall Street. I pursued a different career, but I had those offers. But all my friends did. And so, we've had this steady stock and investing chats and finance chats throughout the years. And that kind of got me into trading. And in 2016, as I was sort of winding down my music career, I found crypto, luckily. A lot of DJs were into trading crypto, not because they deeply believed in the use case or because they had a fundamental belief in Bitcoin, but because we had a lot of free time during the day between producing music and we're sitting at screens, and it was a fun way to make money. And frankly, I just timed it really well.
Mhm.
Very lucky, right? If you came into crypto in late 2016, 2017, and your friends started telling you about Ethereum and Ripple and all these things, you were going to make some money, right? And so I really
Mhm.
came in through the back door as a trader and
Mhm.
eventually made it to the actual importance of the asset class and being orange pilled and all
Mhm.
those things. But that's how it happened. I was doing other things for all these years, but always had a at least superficial knowledge and interest in markets, and traded with varied success, mostly not too well, and found my
Mhm.
way into crypto.
Well, that's a fascinating journey, I must say. And you say you didn't pursue Wall Street, but your show, The Wolf of All Streets, it, yeah, I mean, for me, in my opinion, it has become a staple in the space. And I kind of wanted to ask you what sparked the idea originally and what was your vision when you launched it?
I would love to say that I had a grand plan or strategy, but frankly, I had a following from my music career. And one day when
Wow.
I became very passionate about crypto, I just started sharing charts all over X and lost about half the followers that I had from my music career. But I think it was still a big enough base. And frankly, I had the blue check from music. And back then, blue check wasn't something you paid for, it was something that had to be given. So it gave you a stamp of
Yeah.
credibility, for better or for worse. And so when I started talking about markets, I think people just naturally believed I was an expert in markets because I had a blue check that gave me the credibility. So once again, admittedly, very, very lucky. But for whatever reason, it was that time when everyone's a genius in a bull market. And I was
Mhm.
trading and I was sharing my trades very publicly, and it was going very well because we were in that bull market. And so it just sort of gained traction and gained a following. And so back then also Twitter was very limited in what you could do, right? You had just short tweets. There was no really threads, wasn't a thing, and you couldn't do the long
Mhm.
form tweets. And I said to myself, I'm so passionate about this now, I really want to do something else. And so I started a free
Mhm.
newsletter, which was
Wow.
once or twice a week at the time. And I was tweeting it, this is better than these short form tweets. I can write in long form my thoughts and share charts and things like that. That eventually, because this is just how I operate, became an everyday thing because once again, I felt like I had a thirst for more. Then I got a call from my friends at Blockworks from Jason Yanowitz, and he said, "You should start a podcast." I said, "What the hell's a podcast?" I didn't even know what that was. It was probably 2019, late 2019. It was audio only. It was absolutely horrible, but I was doing that
Mhm.
twice a week. And then that wasn't enough for me. So I decided many ages later to start a YouTube channel, which was leftovers
Mhm.
from my music career as well, and start to do
Mhm.
daily shows. And now it's just ballooned into, daily newsletter, daily live stream, podcast recordings, daily Twitter spaces. I just have this thirst for creating content that comes actually, I think, from the way I was raised, the things I was into when I was young, but certainly from making music all day, every day. I just love creating content. And this is a new
Mhm.
way that I've found to sort of manifest that dream. And so, content. The Wolf of Wall Street's name itself was a complete joke. So somebody made a joke about me in the early days on X, Twitter at the time. I was talking about markets, and they said something like, "Stay in your lane, DJ. Don't you're not into financial markets. Talk about music. Go back to your lane. You fake Wolf of Wall Streets." And I just in a quip responded, "I'm the Wolf of Wall Streets." A joke like that, right? And I was in a bunch of trading groups at the time, and the name Wolf just stuck, and so the brand just kind of
Mhm.
stuck with me by accident, and here we are.
And you wear it proudly, I gotta say. But what a journey it has been for you, and you wear a lot of hats. So music, trading, hosting, commentating, doing podcasts, now going over to YouTube. But what does a typical day look like for you right now, and how do you manage to stay centered through all of it?
I was listening to Brian Johnson speak at the Bitcoin
Oh,
conference in Vegas, and he said, the greatest performance enhancing drug is sleep. And I thought, I'm screwed.
I agree. I
because
agree.
because I'm the worst. Even if I try, I stink at it because I have ADHD and my mind is going wild. But I just don't have time just to sleep. I laid out all of the content that I do, and that's on top of having two young kids, right? And so
Mhm.
they're obviously my
Wow.
main job is having two children who I try to play, soccer mom to, alongside my wife, who obviously does the bulk of that. And it's a lot. So it really just requires waking up exceptionally early, right? I generally get
Mhm.
up in the 4:30 to 5 range. Sometimes it's been pushing a
Wow.
little later. Today was 4, so earlier. Yesterday 3:45, I think. So yeah, I get up very early, and that's when I sort of catch up on the market. I do a quick dive into X, which I try not to do all day. I just try to do it in the morning. And my YouTube team usually sends me a bit of research. The first draft of my newsletter is usually done the night before, and that's when I dig in and
Mhm.
really write my newsletter for the morning. So that takes kind of the first hour or two, and that's really how I effectively do my research for the rest of the day, is by scanning Bloomberg, scanning X, checking out Cointelegraph and CoinDesk, and seeing what's happening in the market. And then, you're kind of ready for anything that comes, right? I didn't specifically prepare for this interview that we're doing right now, but if you asked me about Bitcoin price action, I would be able to tell you,
Mhm.
where it's at and what it's generally doing today, because I've prepared. So I really plow through the newsletter before 7 a.m. is always the goal, because that's when I get up with my kids and, have and hang out with
Mhm.
them while they eat breakfast and get them off to school or camp or wherever they're going. My live stream's at 9 a.m. every single day.
Mhm.
So that gives me maybe, an hour or 45 minutes to prep when they leave. And then I go straight into Twitter Spaces at 10:15 right after that, which I host for at least an hour. So now, we're almost pushing towards noon. Usually that's done about 11:30,
Yeah.
and I've been at it for 8 hours. Right. So,
Wow.
and that gives me a little more flexibility in the afternoon if I have things I need to do personally, gym, things like that. But generally, that's when then I sit down and record my long form podcast, actually take meetings, actually look at investments that I've made. So, by the time I'm done, it's 5, 6 p.m. and it's been a, 12, 14-hour day, and hang out with the kids and take a first shot at the newsletter and some research before I go to bed, and then off to sleep, hopefully by 10.
That was a lot. I'm surprised you mentioned Brian Johnson because I've been following him too. And yeah, sleep is definitely a superpower, which I have not yet harnessed.
Horrible.
But I do got to say, I am envious of your schedule. But you put in so many hours. You don't get tired of that, or there's no burnout that you feel?
Doesn't feel like work to me. I don't know. There's times, certainly,
Mhm.
if the market is bad and the audience is either dwindling or less energetic or outright aggressive, it can
Mhm.
get pretty tiresome. But generally,
Yeah.
I actually deeply believe in what we're doing here. My content, many will notice, has shifted far from trading and really
Mhm.
is just about interviewing the most brilliant minds in the space. So to me, the bulk of my day, it feels like I'm a student who gets to learn from the best professor in the world who would never talk to me otherwise. And so I don't know how I've gotten to the point where I can call anybody and learn from them for an hour, but I feel like
Mhm.
that's a blessing and an honor. And every single time there's something to glean from those guests. So I really never get tired of it because I'm either basically prepping for that or unpacking it, or we're going through the editing and the fun process at the end. So I really do enjoy it almost every single day. There are times when it becomes disillusioning. Obviously, bad
Mhm.
actors in the space or
Yeah.
FUD, and some of that is very justified. So listen, I think everybody slowly takes the path towards being more of a Bitcoin maxi with time as they see what happens in crypto, and
Mhm.
that's been sort of an up and down. But generally, I'm always very, very inspired.
Couldn't have put it better. I think I agree with you 100% on over everything because whenever I get to interview some of the most brilliant minds in this space, people that are CEOs of projects that are making them move in the right direction, couldn't have been more of a blessing to do a job like this. And
Yeah.
I can understand that there's no burnout and it doesn't feel like a job sometimes because, again, it can't really be considered a job because you're learning along the way, you're doing it, you're being in the space, and you're kind of a frontier here. But with everything you said, again, crypto moves fast with all of the bad actors and the FUD and everything like that, and it doesn't always go in the right direction. And so I want to ask, was there a specific story or a scandal that genuinely shook you or made you pause?
For quite a few. Listen, anybody who went through, I guess,
Mm.
2022 and says that they didn't
Yeah.
feel pause or feel like they were ready to quit, I think is probably lying, right? I was very publicly one of Voyager's largest creditors. They were my first sponsor on my podcast in
Ooh.
2019 and early 2020, which is interesting because as much as I've been brutalized for participating in that, like I said, I lost a ton of my own money and was long gone from promoting them when they actually collapsed, right? And so, but I was hook, line, and sinker caught up in CeFi. Like I really believed in it. I
Mhm.
deeply believed that these were great actors who were offering this yield and it was better than the banks. And so a lot of people took that ride with me and I lost a ton of money. My second sponsor, in case you're wondering, in late 2020 was Celsius. So that was only for 2 or 3 months. So it was, like I said, long before any of that happened. Luckily, nobody actually signed up because of me. But I experienced every part of all of that contagion, right? Even though I didn't own Luna
Mhm.
and I was skeptical of it, I was invested in a fund called Arca, and they were basically all in Luna on the way down. So I lost on
Mhm.
that. Every single one of them, I think, felt the pain. But also, as a public figure in the space whose job it is to interview people, I inevitably platformed all the big bad actors, right?
Mhm.
And so I had SBF on my show so many times. I don't hide these things, right? It's very public. I had Machinsky on the show a number of times. So yeah, I mean, seeing those guys. Listen, Steve Ehrlich from Voyager, the CEO of Voyager, like I thought he was my friend, and I deeply trusted him, and I would reach out, and everything's
Mhm.
okay. The platform's great. They were lying to me, So it's very hard after that to deeply trust it. Like I said, you sort of make your way back to Bitcoin maximalism slowly because you know that if you just hold in self custody Bitcoin, you'll be safe.
Props to you. Due diligence done, and couldn't have put it in any better way. Your position here is something that I deeply respect because, again, when you're putting yourself out there, you're trying to make a living off of it. You're trying to learn and give knowledge along the way to all the people that view you. And of course, your main message is, in my opinion, is long term thinking. That's what I've been able to pick up for myself. And but I imagine there are moments where you probably faced moments of doubt. Again, with the Voyager, was there any moment where you wanted to just exit completely during a crash like that?
Well, they tried to help me exit completely, whether I
Mhm.
wanted to or not, because my assets were
Wow.
there, to a large degree. Not that it was all of it, but it was still very, very painful. But no, at no
Mhm.
point did I ever lose my belief in Bitcoin in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
There's other parts of the industry, as I
Yeah.
said, where I start to question things. But if we're looking at it from a 30,000 foot view, I probably believed in Bitcoin itself and a lot of what was being built more deeply after all of that because it exposed the nonsense not only of some of our market, but those were
Mhm.
lessons learned from the greater markets, right? I mean, it's like as bad as Celsius and Voyager and all of these things are. I also lived
Mhm.
through Enron and Bernie Madoff, and these are
Wow.
lessons that I wasn't invested with those, but these are lessons that have been learned in markets over and over again, and are not unique to crypto, right? Which is that there's
Mhm.
bad actors everywhere. They find ways to be fraudulent. Some of them are good actors who just end up under pressure and make mistakes with other people's money, but Bitcoin is pristine, and none of that can happen if you simply buy Bitcoin and hold it. So I would say that it actually
Mhm.
increased my conviction. I was never looking for the exits uh, beyond certain projects or tokens or parts of the market.
I guess we do stumble at some point, and that we've discussed your perception of the market, your belief in it. I wonder what's been your biggest misstep in crypto so far, and what did it teach you?
I think you just heard it right. Definitely, my biggest
So,
misstep
oh,
was not only keeping my assets on
mhm.
platforms like that, but at one point, having them as my sponsors. Although literally it was just business. To me it was
Mhm.
advertisers. But I definitely learned the importance of self custody or trusted custodians, and of, even though I was preaching it the whole time, not your keys, not your not your coins, really feeling it and feeling the truth of that. So clearly, my biggest misstep was my deep belief in parts of the industry that I should not
Mhm.
have believed in, and then of course paying for it monetarily. I learned the
Yeah.
lesson in a very, very hard way.
I think you could have never known about it. I mean, the amount of research you would have probably have to do, and the regulatory limbo in most of the projects out there right now, in which you would believe, but then again, any situation might happen, and I don't think anyone kind of blames you for being part of it. But now you're here, and I think times have gone by, and everything is going well. So I think you managed to learn a great deal from that situation.
100%.
But again, there's no shortage of chaos in this industry. And I wonder what's the wildest, most unexpected thing that happened in crypto uh, is for you.
Uh, Honestly, I think it was when Donald Trump just decided that he was pro crypto and effectively ran on it as his main platform.
Wow.
It's become sort of like default that we accept that that's the case. But you have to remember that in his first presidency, he was very dismissive of Bitcoin, if not outright, you know, uh, against it. He spoke
Mhm.
against it. We know that Mnuchin was against it, and many people in his administration. So when he really came around, and I think he realized that there was a lot of money here to be made for himself, but also, from the industry to support him and to give huge donations. That really, to me, was the biggest turning point that we've ever had. So, Bitcoin
Wow.
spot ETFs being approved and BlackRock coming on board and Donald Trump's advocacy for crypto, those were
Mhm.
really the two biggest catalysts I think that I've seen. And Trump really, to me, effectively came out of nowhere.
I gotta say, I agree with you on this. For me, the biggest shocker was the fact that he launched a coin, and
Trump took it.
you
That's
you'll
fair.
never,
That's
yeah,
a better
you'll
answer.
never, yeah, you'll never be able to top that. There's never gonna be any bigger hype for a token launch other than president elect coming out and launching his own token,
3 days
which was a
before he's
funny,
inaugurated, right when
yeah,
the SEC
yeah.
chairman is gone, so he can't get published, late on a Friday night while everybody's at a crypto ball and it's not accessible anywhere centralized and you have to be on a decentralized exchange. Everything about that was absolute insanity.
And I think we're gonna have to wait for a long while until another situation comes around that tops that, whether it be by media coverage or just the sheer insanity of it all. But you put it in a very good way with all the variables that you mentioned. I kind of want to jump back to the previous answer where when you mentioned SBF, because you've interviewed some of the now infamous names like again SBF, Machinsky. Um, I wonder, how do you vet your guests, and do you ever feel pressured to, or I guess, do you ever feel the responsibility to press them when needed?
I do. The problem is that when I spoke to them, they weren't criminals yet. Right?
Yeah,
They
that's the
were
thing.
largely the heroes of the industry when
Hmm.
I interviewed them, and it's never been my goal to be like a hard hitting
Hmm.
news, aha, gotcha kind of anchor. I
Hmm.
bring people on the show, like I said, that I want to learn from, not people who I would
Hmm.
generally want to argue with. That's not really my format. So I definitely have no problem asking people the hard questions. I just never got the opportunity with any of them because they were still sort of the biggest names, the heroes of the
Yeah.
industry. When you talk about vetting them, I mean, like I said, they were beloved. SBF
Yeah.
was the most beloved name in crypto when I was interviewing him.
Mhm.
Machinsky, Celsius was very successful. There were people who I guess were critics and were skeptical. And at the time, I thought I was asking him the hard questions about where the yield
Mhm.
comes from and how they can safely do that. The problem is he just lied in the answers and I accepted
Yeah.
it. Right? Because it was the same answers they were giving everyone else. This is JP Morgan, does security lending. They make 20% a year. We're just doing the same thing, but giving part of
Mhm.
that back to the customers as opposed to just keeping it for ourselves. The banks are a scam. Like I said, I bought all of that hook, line, and sinker, so I
Yeah.
believe them. Listen, I will talk to anyone. I'll bring anyone on. I will have a conversation and ask any question. But when it comes to vetting, hindsight's 2020. Like I can regret having
Mhm.
had them on, but like I said, I thought they were amazing at the time. I was
Well,
maybe
yeah,
I was dumb, or
everyone.
maybe I was just listening to the mainstream narrative. But there's nothing in my mind where I can look back and say, "Wow, I should have known that FTX was going to collapse. I should have never talked to SBF. He was on the cover of magazines."
Mhm. I think the millions of investors that put their assets into the FTX didn't also know that it would collapse, and frankly, no one really did. And again, as you mentioned, they were considered the heroes of the space. But when you mention questions like where do you get this and where do you get that, that's what I meant by
Yeah,
the
yeah. I
responsibility
asked.
of pushing them. Yeah.
I asked. I guess I just wasn't smart enough to know that they were lies or that it didn't add up.
I disagree with you completely because again, I mean, you're one of the frontiers, and I think your experience comes first whenever you're talking about crypto. So I'd say don't
Appreciate
be
that.
too harsh on yourself. I mean, yeah,
Hard
what
lessons
happened
learned.
happened. Yeah, I mean, it's only through the hard lessons learned that we kind of grow, and your show has been amazing ever since. Not that
Thank
it
you.
was amazing, not amazing before that, but still. But talking about your show, I wonder which episode of your podcast or YouTube video caused the biggest wave, whether from audience feedback, controversy, or some of the unexpected reactions.
I can't necessarily speak to a specific episode, but I can say that I have a specific show that I do now that
Mhm.
has risen to the top and is clearly the crowd favorite. And it was a bit surprising to me. So I have a Macro Monday show that I do every single week with Mike McGlone from Bloomberg, who's
Wow.
was very bullish on Bitcoin for years, but now is a very bearish skeptic. I think it's fair to say him, Dave Weisberger, and James Lavish, who are three guys with incredible decades of experience in financial markets, all of them in almost every aspect. And so for me to sit with those three guys and be able to hear their stories and their experience and learn from that is incredible. That's A, but B, every single time I meet a fan now, it used to be like, I love your trades. We did this, we made money. Now it's, I love Macro Monday. And it's, I'm either
Mhm.
Team Mike or I'm Team Dave because the two of them go at it like cats and dogs about their bullishness and bearishness on every show. And
Yeah.
so I think I've been really surprised. It's not by the reaction to a specific episode or anything, but at who my audience is and how they engage with me. So my audience, it's not the crypto degen traders that it once was,
Mhm.
maybe when I started in 2019, 2020. Every single person I talk to who watches the show, almost across the board, is a single, not single, is a like adult man most of the time, maybe
Mhm.
20% women, 80% men, but an adult with their kids who's my age, I'm 48 or older, and
Mhm.
has actual money and is an investor, not really a trader, and deeply believes in Bitcoin. Half the time they're there with their kids at a conference teaching them about it. So my audience has really become people like me. And I think Macro Monday, because we're all, this age or older, really reflects who my audience has become and who consumes
Mhm.
my content. So years ago, I would have always thought it was the anonymous crypto degen trader guys. And now it's normal guys who view Bitcoin as an important part of their portfolio and really are looking to learn more about the space and how it fits in, more importantly, to the macro and other markets.
With that out of the question, I kind of want to support that last question because you mentioned a lot of things. But let's play futurist for a second here. What do you envision for all those people that watch you in, say, 10 years in terms of crypto, blockchain technology?
I think it's going to be wildly different in 10 years because of the impact of AI on all of it. So it's very hard
Oh,
for me to
yeah.
predict what 10 years will look like because we're in that sort of hockey stick parabolic phase of adoption of new technologies, crypto
Mhm.
being one of them, but I think AI probably being more impactful. I mean, in
Mm-hmm.
10 years, and it's already happening, I think Bitcoin will be a part of almost everyone's portfolio. It'll just be another asset that people have, whether they buy it for the quote unquote right reasons or because they believe the dollar is going to explode and it will become a global reserve currency. I don't know, but I just think that it's become universally accepted and will, just like we have a 60-40 stock to bond portfolio, which is effectively dead, maybe it'll be a 60-30-10, and crypto will become a major part of that portfolio. I think that that's
Yeah.
absolutely inevitable. But I mean, I also literally think that we'll be living in a world where robots and AI are doing most of our things for us, including our transacting, which means they'll be transacting digitally with crypto of some
Mm-hmm.
form, maybe stable coins. And it's impossible to even predict what that looks like for all of us. We're going to have a lot of free time, I can tell you that. But yeah, I think in 10 years, we've just reached really full mainstream adoption. And what that means to me is everybody has a wallet, but that wallet they don't know is a crypto wallet because everything is crypto and everything is blockchain
Yeah.
based. We've abstracted away all of the UX and UI complexities. They won't know if they're on Ethereum or Solana or some
Mm-hmm.
other network. It'll all be interoperable. You'll trade your stocks, you'll earn yield, you'll take a loan, your mortgage, everything will just be in one wallet. It won't be called a crypto wallet. People won't know it's
Mm-hmm.
blockchain in the same way I don't know how my iPhone works or how my email works. It will just be the powerful underlying technology that's powering AI transactions for this financial future.
And you mentioned previously that you're kind of on the side of CeFi,
Not
but
anymore.
with that, oh,
Yeah.
that's where the question
Centralized
comes.
finance to me was Voyager, BlockFi,
Mhm.
Celsius. I think that's pretty much dead and done for now.
Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to kind of ask the question because it was kind of unclear to me. With everything that you mentioned for your future outlook, it's going to become mainstream. Again, you made a great point with UX being kind of the problem because again, you wouldn't have people knowing what a cold wallet is or a hot wallet is, and they didn't understand it. And everything comes in a way of things that are coherent that people can understand. And I kind of want to ask you, where are you leaning towards right now? So is it um, more freedom or is it something more centralized? Because again, having the knowledge of what you're using is, of course, key in crypto, but with it becoming different in a sense, where do you see it going?
More freedom. So actually, I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe both in parallel, but I think a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
will find the freedom side of it very appealing. I think there's a general awareness of the fear of inflation and mistrust of governments, and people want to have something that they can own and self custody and be their own bank. But that's terrifying
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people. So those people are going to go to the normal financial rails, obviously, and buy it in the form of an ETF. And that just becomes another investment. Right. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think you'll have both. You'll have this Wall Street level adoption that we've been seeing, and your average investors coming in and they're participating in a very centralized way, right? They're buying their Bitcoin from BlackRock, basically, right? And that'll be the future on that side. But I think some of those people always find their way down the rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
to the freedom side of Bitcoin and truly get orange pilled and realize that, you can denominate your life in Bitcoin and you can basically exit the fiat scam, as Bitcoiners like to say, and really protect your assets and your future and your time by something much stronger and more important than US dollars. Right. And so there's going to be both, is the answer. I think they'll work in parallel, but both are going to reach massive levels of adoption over the coming years.
I kind of want to go back to the beginning and the roots because with everything that we've said about crypto and blockchain so far, you actually come from a creative world, DJing, music. I wonder if you apply any of those creative instincts or frameworks to trading or how you think about finance today.
100%. So I always kind
Mm,
of joke that I used to produce music all day, every day for decades, right? And
mm,
I started maybe on Fruity Loops and went to Pro Tools, to Logic, eventually to Ableton, and I was always looking at these interfaces and creating patterns. And so trading actually in a strange way came very naturally to me. And that
mm,
was because TradingView just reminded me of using those musical platforms, drawing patterns, finding patterns,
mm,
moving things around, trading itself, looking at the order book. It's a creative process in a strange way. Many people probably wouldn't see it that way, but if you've been through music production and that process over and over again, I think you find it actually very familiar. And that's why, the trading side came naturally, but then also the content creation, because making music is
Mhm.
not that different from making a video. You have
Mm.
a plan, you have an
Wow.
outcome that you
Yeah.
want, you have a message that you want to deliver, and you work through the process of making that happen. And so I think creating content, whether it's music or art or video or photography, it's all kind of comes from the same base. So being a content creator in crypto came very naturally to me.
That's a very interesting comparison you make because with TradingView and all the tools you use for music, that's a first for me, honestly. But I mean, you hear all types of comparisons, and I came from teaching English, so yeah, that was actually a very cool answer to hear, and I'm very surprised that you actually apply all the knowledge and all of the frameworks that you use in music to what you do today. And I guess in terms of content creation, what really changed for you was just turning on a camera and speaking directly to it and not using your high pitched voice. Would you say
That's
that?
exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
So talking about your way from music to crypto, this space is of course full of noise. There are so many opinions and so many red versus blue battles ongoing right now. Uh, but I kind of want to know who or what actually inspires you in crypto today.
So, as I said, I sort of found it as a trader, right? And
Mm,
so I came in completely with no knowledge of what I was trading or why. I just wanted to
mm,
make money. And, I think after seeing what happened with COVID, the way that they stimulated the economy and printed money endlessly and airdropped people funds to, I guess, placate the masses, I really, really deeply understood why we needed Bitcoin and why it was important,
mm,
and other things that were being built in crypto as well. And so I think that sends you down the rabbit hole, right? We've all experienced it and felt it now. And so I
mhm.
think that was a really a turning point for me. Now, I mean, it's hard not to be inspired by guys like Michael Saylor, who just buy Bitcoin blindly
Yeah,
at any price with as much money as they can get their hands on. That kind of conviction, I think, is inspiring to people all over the world. But
yeah.
there's also hundreds of builders that are doing incredible things in this space, truly trying to improve the world and to make better tools and to use this technology for good. So, I try to talk to those people as much as possible on the shows. But I find the entire movement to be very, very inspiring beyond one or two specific actors.
Couldn't agree with you more. I just recently saw the news of Michael Saylor buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin.
It's Random Monday,
Speaks to yeah,
10,000 Bitcoin.
speaks volumes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, that's a lot again. Uh, Pizza day worth Bitcoin.
I mean, it's wild
um,
that guy spent $1 billion on a couple pizzas.
I kind of want to know, what do you make of it? In a situation like that, of course, Laszlo, I think he kind of kickstarted an economy with that transaction. But there's also been a guy who, oh god, can't remember his name, but he lost like $8,000 on a USB that he accidentally threw away. What do you make of situations like that, and what do you think would happen to you if you're in a similar position?
I found other creative ways to lose my Bitcoin, so I can. I think that was a guaranteed and inevitable part of the growth of the asset class, and there
Mhm.
was no other way it
Yes.
could have happened. There's literally, like, Bitcoin could not be where it is today without those
Mhm.
people experiencing those things. Bitcoin would not be a legitimate asset if people hadn't have
Yeah.
spent it for all those years and used it
Yep.
and transacted it and sent it to each other and participated in the network. So with any nascent asset class, with anything that goes from 0 to 100, you're going to have all these
Yeah.
crazy mistakes and stories and regrets. But like I said, those people had to exist. The maxis had to exist. The people who have
Mhm.
tried to live their lives denominated in Bitcoin and spending it had to exist. And so I'm sure it hurts for them personally, but they were a
Mhm.
very important part of this movement and the success of Bitcoin now. It just would not be where it is if they hadn't have gone through those things.
I could not agree with you more again. Man, it's like you're reading my mind. This stands on the fact that you have such a mature vision for everything that has happened up until this point. It just makes me want to respect you that much more, Scott. I got to
Thank you.
say, big, heartwarming thank you for an outlook like that. And I couldn't have been happier on an interview today because thoughts align, everyone is thinking alike, and this is actually where we want to take this because the message is clear. It's a useful technology. Yeah, there are bad actors, but there are bad actors in essentially
Everywhere.
anything.
There's
Yeah,
just
you
bad
wouldn't
people.
blame a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't blame a car for being a part of a bank robbery, right? So
Yeah, and
same thing with
that's my
crypto.
favorite joke is when people say that, Bitcoin is for criminals. Then
Yeah,
why when a drug dealer makes a call on an iPhone do you not go after, Steve Jobs or it, it's just
yeah,
crazy.
true,
It's just
true.
it's an agnostic technology that can be used for good or bad.
Any tool can be used for creating a masterpiece, like you would use, I guess, like a tooth and pickaxe to mine gold, or you can use a pickaxe to
A knife.
swing
Yeah.
swing swing the other swing
Yeah.
the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of want to take this to another stance. I guess like turn it around a little bit. Imagine crypto markets, or crypto overall, blockchain, and all of the media disappeared tomorrow. Would you still matter? Well, what would still matter most to you personally in the space?
Well, if it was gone, I would just hang out with my kids, and I'd probably be fine.
Wow.
But I would have to find a job, I guess. But I don't think I would care so deeply. I mean, it would suck
Mhm.
for a brief time. But I think I would probably find another way to do something creative that inspired me and spend my time doing that. Whether people listened or not, I can't speak for. Two for two so far. I was all right in music and have done pretty good in crypto, so I'm pretty confident I could find a third thing. But yeah,
Mhm.
I think maybe honestly, I'd probably just go back to sitting around producing music all day and trying out cool new AI tools. And
Mhm.
it would suck, obviously, if the thing that I was so passionate about somehow collapsed
Yeah.
or disappeared. But I'm not saying that could possibly happen. But the media side, I guess, could go away. But I think I would have
Yeah.
no problem. Listen, I'm almost 50, so it's not like I don't know how many times I can reinvent myself, but I'm very confident I would find something, and it would definitely be creative. It would definitely not be a job where I went to work for someone else.
Mhm.
I would find a path to do something I was passionate about.
Absolutely amazing. I think that's the most level-headed answer to that question I've heard ever. Because I asked that question to a lot of people, and they're going to be like, "Oh, crypto is still going to be the thing that you use on your daily basis, and even if your job is not tied to it, you still believe it." And yeah,
Listen, all
couldn't
I ever
align more
cared
with
about
that.
was music. Like from
Yeah.
birth, basically, I always loved music. I played piano competitively. I played a lot of instruments. I did
Mhm.
everything in music. Like I said, I kind of like past opportunities on Wall Street to basically
Mhm.
participate in music and to make music. And the day I quit, I haven't really touched it again. Right. And so, as
Wow.
passionate as I am about crypto, I could see turning it off one day and saying, this isn't the thing that does it for me anymore. And I'm on to the
Mhm.
next thing. I've done that once before. I could see myself doing it again.
That sounds like a very good retirement plan. Producing, making music.
Yeah. Go
Couldn't have
back
been more
to
happy
playing
for you.
music. Absolutely.
With that being said, are there any new formats or directions planned for the Wolf Wall Streets? So, coming back to your job, and I guess what should longtime listeners be excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot. So I have a lot of big plans, nobody to execute them. So we'll see if I figure that
Oh,
out. But so I've actually very quietly doing a lot of things outside of just my Wolf of Wall Streets brand. I launched a platform, a newsletter that will become a platform that will become a registered investment advisor called the Crypto Advisor. Literally, we launched
wow.
just over a month ago. We already have 56,000 Substack subscribers, and that is
Mhm.
strictly focused on educating registered investment advisors, RIAs, and investment professionals on how to talk to their customers about crypto and educating
Mhm.
them so they don't look stupid when their customers ask them questions about crypto. Because we know that their biggest fear right now in the professional advisor community is losing the boomer's money to the kid who doesn't want his dad's investment advisor. Right. And so they need to be
Yeah.
knowledgeable on this. There's a huge gap there. And that's something that we've identified. I now own part of a liquor brand, DeFi Spirits, which is a Bitcoin bourbon and DeFi vodka, which is absolutely amazing, working with the guys at Arch Public on their algorithms and expanding those. So like I've got my hands in a lot of different places. I also have multiple new channels planned, but I won't get too deeply
Mhm.
into that. One that's more focused on buttoned up TradFi Wall Street and a little less, jokey and comical and less serious than my current shows where I am a bit more of myself. So playing to that audience I talked about that's a little more mature, sort of starting to create content that's more familiar and accessible to them because I think that that's where the
Mhm.
puck is going. But yeah, I've got a lot in the works right now.
I was very afraid that you would be unwilling to answer this question, keeping it a secret, saying, just stay tuned and you'll find out. But I'm very thankful for
Oh
you
no,
sharing
I
all of
always
that.
get bored eventually. Not that I'm not inspired, but I always need another
Mhm.
thing.
I mean, entrepreneurship is a journey and it doesn't stop there. And I guess you're kind of like a lifelong learner. I'm trying to be one myself, especially in terms of education. And I'm very happy to hear that you're trying to do something like that, of course, with the financial knowledge that you're going to be sharing with the people. Couldn't have been more happy for you. And I want to wish you good luck on that. But that brings me to my last question for today. And I'm very saddened that it's the last question. I would have loved to, of course, hear more from you, but that's going to be on the YouTube videos that you're going to be publishing later on.
Hopefully.
Yeah, but after everything you've seen, the bull runs, the crashes, the scams, the wins, everything that happened so far with your career change at some point, what is the single most valuable lesson crypto has taught you as a person?
It's so obvious. It's buy Bitcoin, keep buying Bitcoin, hold it for as long as you possibly can, and go about your life.
Mhm.
As ridiculous as that sounds, I don't know if you know Gary Cardone. He's a friend of mine. He's another kind of
Mhm.
Bitcoiner in the space. We flew out to Vegas together for the Bitcoin conference, and so the two of us sat there and talked for 5 hours, right? Just two of us
Wow.
having a conversation, and every conversation we had, hey, how can we make money? Do this, like, what business should we build? It always came back to, dude, all you had to do was buy Bitcoin and do nothing else, and it would have beat all
Mhm.
these ideas. And we just kept saying to each other, can it really be this easy? Is it really this simple? And it really has always been that simple. So I would say that's the number one takeaway. But
Mhm.
I think the bigger takeaway from what I've learned is that finding Bitcoin really inspired my financial literacy and sent me down the paths to understanding what money was, how the government operated, understanding inflation, understanding the problems that we need to opt out of. That stuff's not taught in school. They don't even
Mhm.
teach it in college, even if you take those classes. It's like
Yeah.
purposefully not educating people on the most important thing, which is money. It literally is what
Yeah.
we put all of our energy into to create it. And if that can be made for free by someone with a money printer, it means that all of our
Yeah.
energy is effectively wasted. Right. And so I think finding Bitcoin has opened my eyes to a lot of much bigger problems in the world that I was too blind to see. And so
Mhm.
I encourage people to understand that Bitcoin is freedom technology. It really does allow you to opt out a lot of things that are fundamentally broken. And so finding Bitcoin has led me down those paths to where, like, I can't even look at like politics. I don't care. Like tribalism, I don't care. Like I just want to live my life in peace, hold my Bitcoin, and go about my day and not have to be a part of all of these other things that just really aren't important.
I feel you. That's great. You mentioned that they don't teach you the valuable things in school. I mean, they don't teach you how to do taxes, and that's uh, that's a dig at that's a dig at a conspiracy topic that I would like to discuss with you. But with that being said, that's actually all of our time for today, and a very big thank you to you, Scott, for being here. I really hope to see more from you, and I'm gonna be a big fan from now on.
Thank you very much. And a very, very big thank you to you for having me on. It really is always an honor. I pinch myself that people even want to talk to me.
Mhm.
And so it's
Yeah.
great. And thank you so much for all of your kind words throughout.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed our interview today with Scott, make sure you like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and stay tuned for more.